You know that feeling when you have a really profound experience and you try to put it into words, but they just fall flat? It's a classic human problem. Well, centuries ago, a group of early Christian thinkers we call the Church Fathers tackled the ultimate version of this problem. How on earth do you use our finite human language to talk about an infinite, transcendent God? So let's dive into the fascinating intellectual toolkit they built to do just that.
All right, here's our roadmap. We're going to unpack the tools they used, piece by piece. We'll start by looking at why our normal logic just isn't always up to the task. Then, we'll explore two totally different ways of knowing things. After that, we'll get into a brilliant argument that starts with simple motion, then a super clever technique of defining something by what it's not, and finally, we'll see where this whole journey of reason actually leads.
So, first things first, the absolute starting point for these thinkers was recognizing that you have to use the right tool for the job. I mean, you wouldn't use a sledgehammer to fix a wristwatch, right? Trying to apply the wrong kind of thinking to a subject isn't just a bad idea, it completely misses the point. And that brings us right to the heart of the puzzle. Just think about that for a second. If something is fundamentally beyond our categories of thought, beyond our language, where do you even begin? How could you possibly build a bridge of understanding to something that seems, by definition, unreachable?
To really nail this down, the source gives us a powerful analogy. Geometry is incongruous with mourning. Imagine for a moment that you go to a funeral and you try to comfort your grieving friend by whipping out geometric proofs to show them that their sadness is illogical. It's absurd, right? The tool, cold, hard logic, is completely mismatched for the experience of deep personal grief. And the Church Fathers argue that trying to neatly define God with that same kind of simple logic was just as mismatched, just as inappropriate.
So, if simple logic isn't the right tool, what is? Well, the first tool in their kit is about getting a much clearer picture of how we know things in the first place. They saw two really distinct paths to knowledge.
On the one hand, you have knowledge by sight. Think of this as our direct gut-level experience of the world. On the other hand, you have knowledge by natural law, which is our brain kicking into gear, using reason to make logical leaps based on what we see. It's kind of the difference between just looking at a beautiful painting and thinking, wow, an amazing artist must have made this.
Let's just focus on that first path for a moment. When they say sight, it's not just about vision. It's about the raw, direct contact our senses have with everything around us. It's the feeling of warmth from the sun, the sound of music. It's knowing something through pure experience before we start overthinking it.
And that second path, natural law, well, that's what our intellect does with all that raw data. It's our mind looking at the incredible orderliness of the universe. You know, the planets staying in their orbits, the wild complexity of a single cell, and inferring that all this order must point back to an intelligent author, some kind of source.
Now, that idea of rational inference leads us straight to the second tool in the kit. This one's really cool. It takes something we see every single day, the fact that everything is constantly moving and changing, and it uses that as a clue to reason about something that is, by its very nature, totally unchanging. Okay, let's break this down step by step. The argument goes like this. Anything that moves had to start from a state of not moving, a state of rest. That means, logically, rest has to come before motion. So if you trace all the motion and all the change in the universe all the way back to the very beginning, you have to arrive at a source that is itself not in motion, an ultimate state of rest. And this, they argued, is a logical way to get your head around the idea of an eternal, unchanging God.
And this really gets to the heart of it all. They said that both the beginning and the final destination of all motion is stasis, or rest. It's like when you throw a ball up in the air, it eventually comes back down and comes to rest. In the same way, they saw all of creation as moving from and moving toward a state of ultimate rest in its creator.
So here's the crucial point. This tool isn't trying to describe God using our physical laws. Not at all. It's using the very fact that we have laws, like the law of motion, as a kind of giant signpost pointing towards something that exists completely outside of those rules. It's a pretty clever philosophical move when you think about it. And now for our third tool, which is maybe the most fascinating one of them all. The idea is, if you can't say what something is, maybe you can get closer to understanding it by just saying all the things it is not. This is the powerful logic of negation. The Church Fathers used these special words called alpha privatives. It's basically just a fancy way of saying words that start with a prefix like not or un. So they'd say God is incorporeal, which means not a physical body, unbegotten, meaning without a beginning, like we have, immutable, not subject to change, and incorruptible, not subject to decay. Each one of these terms just removes a limitation that we experience in our world.
But here's the most important part of this whole method. These thinkers never claimed these words actually described what God's essence is. Think of them more like guardrails. They don't fill in the picture for you, they just erase the parts of the picture that are definitely wrong. They clear away our limited human ideas and stop our minds from shrinking the whole concept down to something small and manageable.
So why go to all this trouble? Well, it was a strategic move. This negative language was a way to push back against other groups who were trying to create these overly simple, concrete definitions of God, who were trying to, quote, delimit and dominate the mystery. It was a way of insisting that some things have to remain beyond our full grasp.
So we have these three really sophisticated tools: understanding how we know, arguing for motion, and defining by negation. But what's the end game here? Where does all this intense brain work actually lead us? The destination is pretty surprising.
Turns out the ultimate purpose of this entire toolkit is not to arrive at a neat, tidy definition of God. It's not about solving the mystery at all. The real goal is to use logic to take our own minds right up to the very edge of what logic can do, and then to have the humility to see that we've reached a boundary.
After all the arguments, all the definitions, all the mental gymnastics, the final step is to honor by silence. It's this beautiful acknowledgement that the reality you're thinking about is, in the end, ineffable. It goes beyond all of our thought and all of our knowledge. The very peak of this kind of reasoning is realizing that reason alone isn't enough. And so we're left with this really powerful idea, a philosophical system that's designed to lead you not to an answer, but to a profound sense of awe and mystery. It leaves us all with a final, lingering question to think about. If logic can only take us to the edge of understanding, what lies beyond?